you mentioned, one of you mentioned, I think you just, Brad, mentioned artificial intelligence. Now, I'm getting questions from these young interpreters that I'm still teaching. Is this a worry? Yes. Yes, it is.
It is?
Oh, yes, most definitely. I would never tell anybody now, make sure you aim only to be a conference interpreter for the rest of your life, any young person. Now, I might be wrong, and I hope I am, but I think I'm right. This is not for the long term. Here in Brussels, if I get asked, and I do, by some of the young interpreters that I'm helping to train, oh, do you think there's a future? Frankly, no, I don't think there's a future. I think that if you have a very good grasp of certain languages as a freelance now, you will always get work. And those languages are Russian, Chinese, and Arabic. If you are an English-speaking interpreter and you have solid French and Spanish, sorry, sunshine, there isn't going to be a great deal of work for you. If you work in two directions, there may be more, because then you'll get people meeting together who want to chat, be they ministers, be they delegates, businessmen, or fishermen, but they will need a go-between. That also, if you have two booths, I think that will...
Are you saying that because of the ability of the machine? Are you saying this because...
Of course. Everybody's, you know how we interpreters say, oh, no machine will ever replace us. Nonsense. Look back at what has happened when everybody said this won't happen and that won't happen. Sorry.
But there's the Google Translate and DeepL, and there's still translators out there, and they can still make a living.
Yeah.
And we do more that...
Because, Alain, you're not talking about interpreters, or you're talking about...
No, but I was because I think that it's a lot... It is... I think that most people think that it's easier for a machine to translate than to do interpretation, first of all. That's why I was taking translation as an example. But when it comes to interpretation and AI, there are so many issues right now that go beyond the simple technicality of the machine. Right now, what the machine is doing is it sort of understand, it puts it in a script, it translates it, and then you have a robotic voice. I mean, okay, maybe 5-10 years down the line, it might change. But for the last 10 years, I've heard the same thing about truckers. People with 10 years ago said, you know what, self-driving cars are coming, and there's still 2 million truckers in the U.S.
I agree. But I'm saying 5 years, you just mentioned 5 years, maybe 10. Now, if I'm a 23-year-old young interpreter and I want to have a job for life, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to look at other possibilities and not assume the way I assume, rightly, that I would have a job for life. I don't think that a 23-year-old, as I was then, should be looking at this profession as a definite long-term option, unless, as I just mentioned, with certain languages, and especially if you're doing two languages, if you have a second booth. Otherwise, no, I'm fed up with this now. People keep saying to me, oh, we have to argue with people who say that we're going to be replaced by machines. Oh, but no, of course we won't be. Come on, just a minute. The world has changed in ways we could never have imagined 5-10 years ago. I'm not suggesting everyone should leave the field and we won't have any more interpreters, certainly not. But don't assume, everybody, that your job is going to be there for life. Get a day job.
Yes. Yeah, no one should assume that their job is safe. And even Helen, like you were talking about we were talking about the monetization of interpretation as well a little bit earlier, and there's a lot of the AI tools where if you purchase like minutes or hours, however, whatever plan it is that you purchase, it will give you the first language at whatever cost you purchase it, but all of the other languages are free.
Exactly.
So if you have 24 languages going off at once, you're only paying for one language. Cool. So even on a financial level, like some people are going to cave to that.
I think, Brian, I mean, at the moment, the EU has we'd have to change the treaty in order to reduce the number of languages, and that is a major thing. Even if all of them agree, and they probably do, they can all muddle along, mostly in English. Ministers are not going to want to do that. And ministers are also agreeing on legislation. They do need to know what they're talking about in detail and in depth. I think it would be difficult, therefore, to kind of get rid of everything and say, right, let just everyone muddle through. The other thing is that in here, I'm talking about there are staff interpreters with rare languages. If I were running the show here, I would say there will be no more competitions to recruit staffers ever again, only for English, French, and German, maybe 20 in each booth. Leave it as a small service, and everybody else freelance. Now, this is good for freelancers, what I'm saying. So you bring them in as you need them, but you don't have them sitting around, doing nothing. Or, as all of the interpreters here and translators have to have university degrees, they can do other things. They can go and do other jobs in the European Commission or Parliament or Court of Justice. There's no need to be fixed on being a linguist all your life, is what I'm saying. Languages, as you know, for many people, are a sideline, are useful, but they're a backup. They're not necessarily a career. And if it was my nephew or my niece I was advising, I would say, don't even dream of becoming an interpreter. And by the way, not one of my colleagues, my age, has ever advised their children to become an interpreter. And to have had their children become interpreters despite parental opposition. Just say, I have one whose son is now an interpreter and a very happy one and a teacher. She said, I did everything I could to stop him, but no, he wanted to be an interpreter. But
I don't know. I don't know if I would have recommended it to my children, to be honest.
But I was just thinking the same for you and Alain. Would you recommend it?
I would.
Was going to say.
I say that time.
It's a bit different for you because you got Japanese.
Time moves forward faster than our intentions.
Yes.
And I think that it's when in technology there are a lot of how do you call it, hyperbole? You have those. You have though people say, oh yeah, it's coming, and then the robot. We're all going to be surrounded by robots in 2030, and then you're going to have this new medicine that will make people live 150 years old, and AI will change. If it's cloudy and you program the AI, and it'll be sunny again. I mean, I think that. There's a lot of hype. That's the word that I was looking for.
Yes,
there's a lot of hype.
But that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about much more realistic sounding things than that. That's a lot of nonsense. We know that.
No, but I mean, what I'm trying to say here is that it's when you take a look at interpreter as a profession, a lot of the work is to be hired by governments, by institutions, by businesses. Of course, if you have new tools to help people communicate, then people are going to use it. But when it comes to professional settings, when it comes to ministerial meetings, when it comes to judges, when it comes to access to justice, when it comes to all of that, I think that there's still going to be a lot of work. And I would even bet that even for that 23-year-old interpreter that you were giving us as an example earlier, I think that if you're wise enough, you will be able to manage. Maybe you should not expect that it'll be easy all the way, and you might not have to change and adapt to different circumstances. Just like now, we need to use computers and headsets in order to do interpretation, and that wasn't the case before. And a lot of interpreters actually said, "Well, you know what? I go into a booth, I don't want to touch anything because there's a technician there." Of course, you'll have to adapt to the different circumstances, but I don't think that on one click tomorrow, the machine will be able to, we'll say, well, let's turn on the computer, and then suddenly all the interpreters will disappear. There are cars out there, but there's still people putting shoe horses.
Yes,
horseshoes.
Horseshoe. Thank you.
I understand you automatically, right? Yes, it won't happen from one day to the next. It will happen from maybe in the next decade. Is what I'm saying. And if you're a 23-year-old, 33 is still quite young when you are hoping you're going to be working. Don't take it for granted. Just don't take it for granted.
No, that's true.
I hope to be retired by the time that happens. But even then, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know.
Well, right.